Hello, today I will be showing you how to do Advent of Code 2023 Day 1. The newly improved calibration document consists of lines of text. Each line originally contained a specific calibration value that the elves now need to recover. On each line, the calibration value can be found by combining the first digit and the last digit in that order to form a single two-digit number. So let's take a look at the example input. Basically, I have some like boilerplate code. Read file.from is this, and essentially it'll read from resources, the folder, and it'll get the input pretty easily. So the first thing is, since it contains lines of text, we're going to need to split this into lines. Okay, and we need to find the first digit and last digit of each two-digit number. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to look at each character. Since the number is a digit, it's going to be one character long, and so we're going to look. If it's a number, then we're going to set int first number equals whatever, and then for the subsequent characters that we find, for example 2, if that's another number, then we're going to set an int second last number to be that. So essentially the last number is going to be overwritten each time we find another number. So for line of lines, we're going to go through each line. We're going to find the first number, call it negative not 1 for now, and last number, and we're also going to keep track of a sum. Now for each character in the line, if it's a number, so each character can also be converted to an integer, and it so happens that 0, 1, 2, 3 to 9 are all in like a succession. So we can actually compare the numbers, like if 0 is less than or equal to C and C is less than or equal to 9. This is how we're going to check if it's a number, because the ASCII code for the numbers will be in this range. And so if it is, then the number will be to convert this into a number, if you just subtract 0, then if say like 0 had the ASCII code of like, just for example, I don't think it's 50, but if it was 50, then if it was 0, then we convert it to 0. If it was like 1, and so it would have an ASCII code of 1, it would be 1, and so on. So that's how this works. And so then if we haven't set the first number yet, then first number will be the number. Subsequent calls, we won't do this. And the last number, we will just overwrite to the n always. That's sum plus equals to first number times 10 plus last number, because if first number was 1 and the second number was 2, that's 1 times 10 plus 2 equals 12. So now if we test it out, it should print 142, and that is indeed the correct answer. For part 2, it's slightly more complex. Your calculation isn't quite right because you need to account for the spelled out numbers. So let's take a look back at the example input first. So essentially the key for this is we can still use the code we had previously, but we just now need to replace first number and last number, if applicable, with the text number. So the way we're going to do this is first we're going to create an array for the actual spelled out numbers, call it nums, and instead of making an array, I'll just do this. And so if you notice, since array indices start at 0, we're going to just add a 0 at the start just to make the math a little easier. So now essentially there are two methods in the string class that will help us out here, line.indexOf and line.lastIndexOf. So the last index of, basically we're going to just check the index of these inside of the input and instead of each line. And so if their starting index is less than the starting index of the first real number, like this one, then we'll just replace it with the smaller starting index and with that number. So we'll just need to keep track of int first number index and last number index. And the same logic applies to the last number. Since the index of 9 is at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, the last index of 9 is at 4, which is greater than 3, which is where the last index of the real number is. Then we'll just replace last number index with 4 and last number with 9. So this code is fine. We'll just go for I equals 0, I less than nums.length, I plus plus, then we'll check the index. And here we just need to store the index of each character number or real number. So it's I equals 0, I less than dot length plus plus, and so first number index equals I and last number index equals I. So now this code will find the first index and last index of the real numbers, and now we'll just check the index of the spelled out numbers. So int first index, index of is essentially the first index of, it'll just find, the first occurrence. You also need to do string num equals nums I, and so int first index equals line.index of number. And if first index happens to be negative, then we'll just skip the number because we know the last index will also be -1. And so now, if first index is less than first number index, so like less than this index, then we have a new smallest index, which is first index, and a new number, which, because we have the 0, so 1 is at index position 1, so this I will be 1. And then if last index is greater than last number index, then last number index equals last index, and last number equals don't forget to set sum to 0. No, it's 281. Alright, so you also have to account for the fact that sometimes there are no numbers, so index will be -1. And so for this input, get the correct 281. For the actual input, the correct answer. So that was day 1 of the advent of code. The code is available on my GitHub that I will link below. So happy coding!